Hi everyone, welcome to the weekly live stream from the Age Diversity Forum. We're here to amplify the message of the benefits, the values of age diversity in the workplace, to address topics of conversation that we hear in the media. And we've got a good one today that we issued in our posts around Twitter and LinkedIn earlier this morning. We're going to be talking about generational groups and how they have evolved and developed, and new ones are being added. Not new ones because of how time is shifting on, but actually new group names that seem to cross existing ones. So really quite interesting. So we'll be talking about that today for this next 30 minutes. We'll be here. If you're joining us live, please let us know you're here and join the chat via the YouTube chat function. I'm here on my own at the moment. We've had a couple of technical issues this morning, and I'm on my editor-in-chief, Sadie Baker, to join us. Sadie is the one that looks after all the production of the event, so I am very much hoping that she's able to join very soon. But just to reiterate, why are we doing these weekly streams? Age diversity is a legally protected characteristic. Unfortunately, it does go under the radar and is not a high priority for many organizations. Behind really important inclusion areas such as gender or race or LGBTQ, age is normally down the pecking order. So, but as age is becoming more fundamental in our society, the way populations are changing all over the globe, it's becoming an area to be considered more, just not from an aging perspective, but how organizations and business can benefit from a multi-generational workforce, how to share knowledge and experience and technical competence and academic achievement within an organization to enhance, not just because it's the right thing to do, but to enhance business performance, but also create a real inclusive culture of great behaviours, of best practice that achieve a much more cohesive and happier workforce. And with that happier workforce comes many of the well-being attributes that we're all seeking for as well. So organisations have a great role to play in that, to achieve that for individuals, and when individuals go from the workplace, to take that into their home life and their local community. So it's a huge opportunity, a huge challenge in terms of addressing bias and discrimination and barriers in various areas of the employment environment, particularly around recruitment and training and retention of people. Under our Making a Noise campaign, which this part of our media content is formed, we're issuing some short videos of what we can do to stop ageism. Quite a bold statement, but very much we feel it needs to be bold. We want to get that message across, and these videos are formed of just sort of discussions, but where we offer some real practical guidance and tips, if you like, in certain areas. And last week we did, we talked about the recruitment process and what organisations can do quite easily in terms of the whole recruitment process to ensure not just that you're considering people of all age groups, but actually that businesses get the best people for the role, which is ultimately what organisations are seeking to achieve when a vacancy appears. And through our Champion Age Diversity Employer Engagement Programme, we can offer some very practical service provision to not just help bring up that good practice within the workforce, but actually be a conduit to reach a demographic of applicants that you may not otherwise see through, let's say, more traditional recruitment routes. So please come and check that out with us. There's all sorts of values and benefits within that program, but that's a really practical and also economically beneficial one for many organisations, because that whole functionality is free within our partnership program. So yeah, please come and have a chat with us about that. Look at the video. You can see that within our main content on our YouTube channel, which is an ever burgeoning area of information and insight. So please check that out. At this point, Sadie would normally be putting up links and signposts to these various places. And this is Sadie joining us now, at least in voice. Sadie, are you there?
I seem to have accidentally.
She was there briefly. But we're going to continue because we know that some people follow this 11 to 11:30 slot. So we want to maintain that consistency. I'm just going to warn Sadie again as she attempts to come back. We are live, Sadie, so no expletives on your struggles with technology this morning.
No, I won't. Yeah, I seem to have turned off my camera.
Don't worry, we can hear you. That's good enough. It means at least our audience is not just listening to me. We've got your input as well, because actually I've already outlined the topic of our conversation today, which is the naming of generational groups. And now that Sadie's with us, maybe we could take this opportunity whilst we've got Sadie to talk about this topic. Are you still with us, Sadie?
Yeah, I am. Hello.
Excellent, good. So in my introduction, I was mentioning about within the age agenda, there are recognised groups depending on when one was born, and this stretches quite a long way back. But I think majority of organisations would see probably somewhere up to 5 different generational groups, beginning mostly right now with baby boomers, which then went into Generation X's and millennials and onwards. But just this week, I've been introduced to a new generational group term that we now, beyond this sort of what we've become used to in terms of brand in different generations, there seems to be now new terms being used that bridge some of these areas. I mean, just recently I became aware of something that a new term that's been used between baby boomers and Gen X's, for example, the Generation Joneses. I don't know whether that's got anything to do with, like keeping up with the Joneses, as it were, that sort of terminology. But this week, in the space of 2 days, like the buses, on Wednesday, I was giving a presentation to one of our age diversity advocates, an internal corporate event, and one of the organisers, just before going live, said, I was described this week as a geriatric millennial. And like the buses, very soon after that, I received an email from our friend Tony Williams, who's featured on this show, a couple of times now, about a radio. It was Women's Hour on Radio 4 this week, where again this term geriatric millennials was used. And by the way, in both cases, it seemed it was referred to women. I don't know if this is just reserved for women or not. I wouldn't imagine so. But yes, geriatric millennial. So this is apparently looking around people that were born around 1980 to 1985, so a relatively small window there. It sort of bridges Generation X to millennials, but with a thought process behind this, that it's someone who can easily jump or a bridge between analog and digital. And I guess what that means is as you know, technical devices have developed, you know, really quickly over recent time to become a, you know, a necessity for us all in various ways, not just the workplace, but you know, the social environment, whole social media jungle, if I present it that way out there. But just really interesting that geriatric millennial, and by the way, in both situations that I was made aware of this term, it didn't seem to be one of you know complimentary. It was almost like you know, a negative term almost. And again, that comes back to some of the things we've spoken about before: the use of language and terminology, how it can be perceived, how it can create a situation where we immediately think, oh, geriatric millennial, that's a bad thing. Why would it? But if we think about how it's described, someone who can bridge analog to digital, surely that's really useful, and to be able to you know, appreciate and consider situations in those. It's not just black and white, I know, but you know, in those two generational areas. But surely that would be a positive thing. And as we've said many times, and we will continue to say, surely it's a positive thing to have all generational groups conversing, working together, partnering together, sharing know-how, knowledge, experience, competence in various things, whether that's technical, whether it's academic, whether it's you know, just knowing how to use softer attributes in our lives, in our careers, whether that's in terms of providing solutions, whether it's engagement, customer engagement, whether it's designing products, service, using technology and know-how in all of these areas. Surely this creates innovation, it creates harmonization, and ultimately, you know, in the workplace, it's innovation of business that produces improved performance. So I've been burbling on. Hopefully you're still with me, Sadie, and because just before coming live, you know, I mentioned this topic to you, and you then produced another another terminology that, again, that seems to bridge another couple of these generational groups.
Yeah, so after boomers, you'll have millennials, and after that, you have Gen Z. So in between millennial and Gen Z, there are, which are kind of like in the middle. I'd probably say they're around like 20 to 25. I think that's probably the age range that people who would perhaps associate with that generational name. So yeah, Zillennials.
Zillennials. So this is another what I would see as a, you know, another division almost within, you know, generational groups. And is it a healthy one or a helpful one? I mean, you were mentioning, Sadie, that that in your experience, generational groups are recognised, you know, within your peer group and your sort of cohort, as it were. And have you got an example of how that's, used? I think you mentioned something earlier about sort of humour being related to certain generations.
Oh yeah. I think I first heard the terms like generational terms and Gen Z through humor. So I would, for example, I'd show my mum something, she wouldn't find it funny, but the caption on the video perhaps would just be Gen Z humor, or I'd see something online and it would be Gen Z humor, Gen Z this, or like they'd use that term to describe the humor that they were presenting. And I think it's to do with perhaps just the experience that we've had so far in our lives. Maybe like how our humor changes throughout the generation. So something my mum would find funny, I wouldn't find funny. Sometimes I will, but like I think it's to do with just different experiences and how old we are, not necessarily how mature, but
Yes, it's more more the environment that you are more used to. But
yeah.
so I guess this, if you like, this branding of Gen Z humour, for example, that's coming from that generation itself rather than being imposed on that generation, if you see what I mean. So it seems it's the generation itself describing it in that way.
Yeah, I think within each generation we have our own stereotypes that we've put upon ourselves, and I think the Gen Z humor is one of those stereotypes that my generation has. It's not necessarily a negative thing, but
Well, I'll just say, is it from that? Sorry, Sadie, is it perceived as negative, or is it almost like a bit of not protest, but we are Gen Zs, and we're important, and we have our own environment that we've grown up and we're used to. Is it something just to create a bit of recognition, a bit of personalization of that group?
I mean, I see something that's Gen Z humor. It's either going to be really bad humor, and I'm not going to find it funny, or it will be something like a reference. Like it will be a reference, and I'll get it, and I'll find it funny. So I see it as something that if I click on it, I'm probably going to understand what's going on. Like it's not going to be. There's the whole joke of millennial humor and boomer humor is on Facebook, and Gen Z don't find that, like, that's a stereotype. But like I know that if it says Gen Z, then I'm more likely to find it funny because I'll understand what the joke is. So I think it's a reference point for a lot of people to find humor. I don't know.
So this is really interesting because we talk about use of language and terminology. Obviously, there can be differences in all of that depending on our age and our experience, and certainly as the Age Diversity Forum, it's all about multi-generational groups and recognising that everyone has a contribution, a valuable contribution to make in the workplace, and how do we harness that, and how do we encourage that those behaviours, those activities, that culture within the organisation that creates that shared experience. Is this part of almost, I don't want to describe it too, I don't want to dismiss it too much, but is this part of the problem that that there are these reference points, there is this terminology that's used, and it's part of that society environment that as soon as you mention a term that refers to a group of people, that there's an immediate perception of, I mean, for example, this Gen Z humour, let's take that as an example, as I said, seems to be, and you confirmed, it seems to be generated from that generational group itself. And you've already made reference to some other things you've seen about, boomer humour. Be careful I say that. What is there an immediate thought process or perception or an idea of maybe what that is? Is it, you know, in terms of a Gen Z, someone from a Gen Z population, when they see something about boomer humour, is that something that immediately sort of you see as a, maybe not a negative, but oh, that's not for me, or you know, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So I think when people use the terms Gen Z and Boomer, I think that's when it creates the 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 divide in the humor, because I you know, you instantly think, oh, I'm not going to find that funny if it's for boomers or whatever. But if you were just it's a joke. It's if it was just branded as humor, then I think it would be, I'd watch. I don't know how to describe it. I think it's gatekeeping is the issue within generations. I think a generation, let's say millennials, might think that this one thing that they grew up on, that's theirs. And if they say something funny, a Gen Z or a boomer can't find that funny because it's theirs. I think the same goes for boomers and same goes for Gen Zs. And obviously you can find it funny. Like, you can watch a show, you can find the jokes funny, but I think it's when the gatekeeping gets brought in, I think that's what creates the divide, not the labels themselves.
Yeah, I completely get where you're coming from. It's like, you know, this is our group. This was our time. Therefore, you know, who are you to impose on this almost? You know, which is you know, a bit ridiculous. But I know, completely understand that. Almost again, I don't want to keep using bold term, but you know, tribalism within age, almost. You know, in terms of you know, this is our generational group, and we're gonna, yeah, as you say, we're going to be the gatekeepers for this group. We're going to be the ones that censor it, that approve it, and yeah, almost become quite protective of that whole environment. Whereas I think, as I say, we need to, the whole inclusion agenda about isms is about removing barriers and smoothing ripples and obstacles. And you know, I mean, something that comes to mind that I think we all saw in the COVID pandemic last year, you know, Captain Tom doing his 100, you know, laps of the garden. And for a chap who was you know, of that age, to talk about just, you know, making the most of while we're here, and you know, and that, I can't remember his exact quote, but you know, tomorrow is a better day, sort of thing. You know, it doesn't matter who or what you are or where you come from. It's just you know, make the most of everything around us and everyone around us. You know, just really cutting through and cutting across generations. Because I think I know I'm saying that you do you recognise that, Sadie, at all, in terms of, I guess everyone knows who Captain Tom was.
Yeah.
And he cut across generations, I think. It seemed to, in terms of the profile that he had and the response that he got. So I think so, you know, it can be done. You know, it can be done. And I think vice versa, you know, the likes of you know, the whole climate challenge, and you know, Greta Thunberg, who's, you know, a young person who, you know, I was going to say taking the world by storm, but maybe that infers some sort of issue with the climate. But you know, to become such a voice for attention to climate changes at such a young age, again, it's probably the other end of that spectrum, isn't it?
Yeah, we've had Attenborough be the sort of leader for you know, like the earth and protecting species and climate change. And so to bring someone so young to work with Attenborough, I think it really just, I don't know, it was nice to see, because you see her get just like, I don't know the word for it, but people hate on her because she's so young, because she has these ideals. They think she's naive, that she can't change the world, she can't do this, she can't do that. But if Attenborough came out and he did the same things,
Well, there's a complete
Still
love
do
for
it.
him, isn't there? So
Absolutely. So it was absolutely brilliant to see someone like Anne, who's held
yeah.
in such high esteem by the public, work
So
together with her.
yeah, so that absolutely evidences, doesn't it, our whole message about multi-generational groups coming together with shared ideals, ideas, with shared outlooks, with shared interests. In fact, there was something on the news this morning that probably echoes that too, in a slightly different way. But there's a footballer in the UK, Marcus Rashford, plays for Manchester United, who again during COVID almost put himself forward as to campaign for meals for children during the COVID pandemic, and meals for vulnerable children who would normally get their meals at school, of course, when the schools are shut. And I noticed that there had been a conversation, I think maybe an overnight, between him and Barack Obama.
Oh, lovely.
So, Barack Obama, a huge, obviously, influence on the world with his presidential role, but of a different age to Marcus Rashford, but coming together with complete synergy on a social problem and an issue.
Yeah.
So, and from completely different parts of the world, but so different generations, different locations, with an absolute common understanding of a challenge that together, I no doubt that conversation, because it's been highlighted on BBC News, so I imagine that's going to go international and in the US as well, that challenge will be recognised, and actually because of those generational groups coming together, it will be more recognised by more people because of that generational aspect. So yeah, two great examples actually that really break the myths, break the generational gaps, as it were, or groups. And so I'm a little bit concerned, and why it's probably too strong, but it's just interesting that we've got these different generational groups already recognised for various reasons, but we seem to be applying variations or blending some of these groups together to come up with new ones. So I think we will keep an eye on that, obviously, and and does it become almost divisive and introduce new barriers in certain ways, because obviously that's something we don't want to do. So let us know your thoughts on that, people out there listening, because we need to nip things in the bud and to create change. Something we've spoken about, and I realise we're getting to the end of our 30 minutes, but and we're still hoping to do in the very near future is to have a round table for students, for young students, to really showcase that age diversity, challenge but opportunity is for everyone. And whilst usually when people think about age diversity, they think about older people who have been adversely affected in the workplace, and certainly during the COVID situation. It's not just reserved for older people, these challenges and opportunities. It's for everyone, and whatever age you are, you can feel this, you can feel that adverse impact, you can feel that segregation, that neglect, that lack of opportunity. So so as an organisation, we're absolutely seeking to address that. And just my final point would be as it's 2 weeks to go till June 11th, where we celebrate Champion Age Diversity Day. Please go and look at our dedicated page on our website for why it's important. But also there's things, we've got a top 10 of activities that you can get involved and do within your own organisations. And we've got some resources to download there. But just to confirm, we've got our own live event on that day. We've got a keynote speech from Professor Andrew Scott, the author of the 100-Year Life. We also got a keynote from one of our champion partners, Elsevier, Karen Hilton, one of the senior execs in Amsterdam. We've got a live panel event that follows that keynote, where we've got the likes of Hansuki, Barclays, and the Age Diversity Forum participating in that event. We've got great support from the likes of London and Partners, again, one of our champion partners, to promote that event. So please get involved. And just very quickly, let us know that you're doing something. We were contacted by an organisation this week, one of the national UK charities, who wanted to find a little bit more about the Age Diversity Champion Programme. And they said to me, have you heard about, Champion Age Diversity on June 11th, And I thought, yes, we know that. And, it's we're the custodians for that. So people are seeing it. They may not be completely joining up with the Age Diversity Forum, but it's just great that people are recognising this as an opportunity to highlight commitments and consideration for age diversity in the workplace. So please do get involved, and if you do, let us know. We'd love to hear about what you're doing. So on that note, apologies for technical issues today, but thank you, Sadie, for your invisible contribution.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll try to get my camera fixed for next time. I have no idea what I did.
But thank you for that. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you again next week. Bye for now.